The story begins in Poland, in the year 1957. We see a priest who looks very scared. He enters a church carrying a child. The child has a strange mark on his chest. According to the priest, this child is a demon sent from hell. The priest pulls out a dagger, ready to kill the child, but just before he can do so, the police arrive to stop him. It was also the day of a solar eclipse. The priest keeps saying, "You have no idea who this is. Don't stop me." As the priest raises the dagger, the police are forced to shoot him. The priest dies on the spot, and the child is saved. Now the story jumps 30 years into the future. We meet the main character, Mary, who is actually a police officer. However, Mary is posing as a priest to enter an old church because several women have gone missing, and they were last seen being brought to this very church. The police didn't want to openly search the church to avoid creating a scandal, so they sent Mary to gather evidence without the church's knowledge. Upon reaching the church, Mary meets a father who is the head of the place. The father shows Mary around the entire church, and after that they search Mary's belongings since the church has very strict rules. After showing Mary her room, the priest warns, "It would be best if you don't leave your room at night, as walking around the church after dark is forbidden." Mary replies, "I'll keep that in mind." The church had no electricity or telephone, and it was an eerie place, isolated from the outside world. Mary changes clothes, and we see that she has the same mark on her chest as the child from the beginning of the story. This reveals that Mary is that same child. Then, she opens her bag, revealing a hidden compartment containing a camera, a gun, some essential tools, and a newspaper clipping about the missing girls. It's clear that Mary has come to investigate these disappearances. Mary joins the others for a meal, but she finds the food strange and unsettling. It looks like some kind of strange meat, but the others are eating it enthusiastically, so Mary is forced to eat quietly as well. Later, while walking through the hall, Mary passes a room where she notices a woman in terrible condition. According to the church, the woman is possessed by a demon, and the church members are trying to perform an exorcism to treat her. This night, they were going to use black magic and rituals to treat the possessed girl, and Merrick was going to witness it for the first time. The woman was tied to a bed in a room, and a priest was recording the entire process on video. As soon as the priest started reading from the Bible, the woman began thrashing violently. She screamed loudly. Strange noises came from within her, and even the bed started shaking. When the priest held up the cross and started praying, the cross caught fire. Seeing this, everyone became very frightened. However, the priest didn't stop praying, and after a while, the exorcism was completed. During this scene, we are shown a painting of Jesus, from whose eyes strange worms began crawling out. After witnessing all of this, Merrick felt very sick. When he went to the bathroom, the mirror started cracking on its own, and he heard strange noises coming from his room, which scared him. But Merrick didn't believe in any of this. He thought it was all just a trick. Later, he wandered into the hall and stopped in front of a room. It was actually the prayer room. Before he could enter, the father told him that no one could enter the prayer room without permission, so Merrick left without saying anything. During dinner, they were again served rotten meat, which wasn't even cooked properly. There was also a new boy there, who was disgusted by the food and started crying. The priest signaled another man to go over to him and whisper something in his ear. After that, the boy reluctantly started eating the meat. There was no doubt something was wrong with the food, as Merrick also ended up vomiting later. He even lost a tooth, which he inspected closely. To his horror, a fly crawled out of the tooth. This terrified Merrick. In the middle of the night, Merrick quietly sneaked into the priest's room, where he found a secret door. Behind it, there were many tape recordings. These were recordings of the people who had undergone exorcisms at the church. Additionally, there were bottles of alcohol, music cassettes, and inappropriate magazines, revealing that the priests were just pretending to be righteous. After this, Merrick went to the room where the exorcism had taken place. Under the bed, he found a syringe, indicating that the girl had been drugged or given something that made her act crazy during the ritual. The cross the priest had used. There was actually a lever and a hidden button that caused the bed to shake, meaning everything that happened that day was staged. Yes, the girl was real, but she was a victim of their manipulation. Merrick realized that whatever happened to the missing girls, these people must have done something horrible to them. The next morning, everyone gathered for prayer. The priest asked Merrick to lead the prayer because he was suspicious that Merrick wasn't truly a priest. Merrick began praying in English, but the priest insisted that he pray in Latin. Merrick struggled with the Latin, so the others took over. At lunch, they were served the same meat again, but this time, Merrick found a hair in his food, which made him vomit. Merrick knew he had to complete his mission quickly, as the priest now suspected him. He returned to his room, burned the newspaper clipping, and kept his knife close for protection. When he stepped outside, he saw some priests digging a grave because the girl who had undergone the exorcism had died. That night, Merrick went to the place where they kept people locked up, men and women who were labeled as cursed and insane by the church. As Merrick was observing, one of the head priests, the mockmaster, noticed him. The priest secretly approached him and whispered, "Everyone here knows you're looking for evidence, but escaping from here is nearly impossible. I tried once, but once you're here, there's no way out. If you want to survive, don't ask questions. Just do as you're told." At this point, Merrick revealed the truth. "I'm not a priest. I'm a police officer. 8 girls have gone missing from this village, and they were supposedly sent here for an exorcism. The police can't directly intervene, so I had to come undercover. I know this entire exorcism thing is a scam." The priest told him the priests do this for money so they can keep getting funds from the larger convents. Later, they claim the women died of insanity during the exorcism, but no one really knows what happens to them. Merrick promised, "I'll get you out of here." Afterward, Merrick returned to the church and continued his investigation. Behind a wardrobe, he found a large hole. Inside, he discovered a tooth wrapped in wood and a single eye. The eye started moving on its own, which terrified Merrick, and he threw it away. At the same moment, he began vomiting, and flies came out of his mouth. Merrick then saw a shadowy figure in front of him, which made him panic. But in the next moment, the thing crushed under Merrick's foot disappeared, and he returned to his room. When night fell, Merrick went to the church cemetery and began digging up the grave where the girl had been buried. But when he opened the coffin, it was empty. While he stood there in shock, someone approached him from behind and knocked him out. When Merrick regained consciousness, he found himself tied to the bed in his room, with the father sitting nearby, praying. Soon the priests arrived, bringing 4 different bowls of food for Merrick. After saying a prayer, they forced him to eat. Despite his refusal, Merrick asked them what exactly they were feeding him in these 4 different bowls, but they didn't answer and force-fed him. Later that night, the father, who was keeping watch, fell asleep. Merrick took advantage of this moment to free himself, but by then, the father had woken up. A fight broke out between the two, and Merrick managed to grab his gun and shoot the father. After escaping the room, Merrick headed straight to the kitchen to find out what he had been eating. He opened the door to the storeroom, and what he saw horrified him. Hanging there were the butchered bodies of the women who had gone missing. All this time, they had been feeding him the flesh of those very women. Mong also arrived, and seeing all this, he was equally shocked. He urged Merrick to come with him, as he knew a secret way out. But before leaving, Mong took Merrick to the library because there was something Merrick still didn't know. In an old book, it was written about a child who would be born during an eclipse, something that only happens once in 800 years. This child must be killed at birth using a specific dagger and a prayer. If not, the child would become a demonic being, destined to drink the blood of 7 sinful women, and once the prayer was complete, the demon would reveal its true form. Once that happened, no one in the world would be able to stop its wrath. Mong told Merrick that everyone believed he was that demon child, and for days, they had been secretly feeding him the flesh of those sinful women in order to summon the demon from hell through him. The book also described a mark associated with the demon, and Merrick had that same mark on his chest. Now that they knew the truth, they decided to escape together. Mong knew of a tunnel beneath the ground. Mong claimed to know a way out since he had tried escaping before, but Merrick didn't trust him. Then, Mong showed him the scars on his stomach, proof of the beatings he had taken while attempting to escape. Convinced, Merrick followed Mong through the tunnel, but it turned out this was all part of Mong's plan. Along the way, 2 men appeared and started attacking Merrick, eventually capturing him. When Merrick regained consciousness, he found himself tied to a tree. The priests told him that his arrival here wasn't a coincidence. They had bribed the police to ensure Merrick would be given the case. They explained that the devil wasn't evil, humans were, and punishment was necessary. Pointing to a crow, they said it flew directly to hell, which is why they had built their church there. For 800 years, they had been waiting for Merrick, and once the prayer was complete, the king of hell, the devil, would enter Merrick's body and rule the world, changing it forever. These people didn't worship God, they were followers of the devil, believing they would become his servants. Sometime later, they brought out the innocent girl, slitting her throat so Merrick could drink her blood. The priests, one by one, began to drink her blood. After that, they forced Merrick to drink it too. Though Merrick wanted to survive, they continued chanting to summon the devil, but despite their prolonged efforts, nothing happened. Seeing this, Merrick began laughing at them for believing in an ancient book. No one could understand why it wasn't working. Everyone became disappointed. Mong suggested they had been mistaken and that their efforts had been in vain. He told them that soon they would forget this entire event because their intentions were pure. But now they feared Merrick might expose them, so Mong stabbed Merrick in the stomach, killing him. They threw his body into the well and left. Back at the church, the priest began drinking heavily. He was devastated, realizing that all their years of work had gone to waste. Meanwhile, the cross on the wall turned upside down by itself, though they didn't notice it. Mong approached the priest and helped him lie down on a sofa. The priest muttered, "I was supposed to become a servant of the devil today, but look at me now, I'm nothing in anger." Mong placed a pillow over the priest's face and suffocated him to death. He was furious because the priest had ruined all their lives, making them follow his orders blindly. After killing the priest, Mong told the others that too much alcohol had killed him. After this, they resurrected the women they had killed, so that if the police arrived, there would be no evidence left. Then we see a fly emerging from the priest's body, which flies away and enters Merrick's corpse in the well. Suddenly, Merrick comes back to life. Slowly, his body begins to transform into something else, something terrifying. The devil itself was emerging in its true form. Meanwhile, everyone was praying for the priest. At that moment, Mong's body started to float in the air, gradually transforming into a swarm of flies and disappearing. Then, from the tunnel, a horrifying figure began to emerge. It was none other than the very devil they had been trying to summon. It had taken over Merrick's body and was now revealing its true self. One by one, the bodies of the remaining people started hanging upside down, and they all met terrifying deaths. Everything inside the church that was alive began to die, and everything dead was brought back to life. When the devil stood in front of the statue of Jesus, the statue's face turned towards him. Outside the church, everything was reversed. The sky turned black, swirling above the church. It was clear this was the gate to hell, which had now opened and was ready to swallow the church whole. The entire world's reality was about to change. With the devil now ruling, no one could stop the world from being destroyed by his demonic forces. The devil had been awakened forever. And with this horrifying scene, the story comes to a chilling end.